Alright, kicking things off now at number 10, we've got a diamond planet. In 2012, astronomers announced that a planet they had known about for a while, called 55 Canry E, was made out of diamond. Well, at least a third of it was. Scientists were shocked because this was the first rocky planet that wasn't covered in granite and water. They actually think its surface is made up of graphite and diamonds as far as the eye could see. Its radius is almost twice that of Earth, so if scientists are right about this, that's a whole lot of bling bling. And if you want to get your hands on some, it's only about 40 light years away, and with our current technology, that will only take you about 860,000 years to get there. Roughly. I still think there are diamond obsessed people out there who would be totally down for that journey. Alright, moving on to number 9 now, we have tardigrades. In 1773, Johann Goes discovered a microscopic animal called tardigrades. Now these 1mm creatures are insanely tough. They've been dragged to the highest mountains, the deepest oceans, and every hot and cold climate you can think of, and they just don't die. They refuse to. Oh, and if you try and starve or dehydrate them, well, good luck. They can live for at least 30 years without food or water. Scientists were like, this. What even are these things? Let's take them into space. Surely they can't survive in space, right? So they dehydrated some of them and took them into space in 2007 and exposed them to the vacuum of space and its intense radiation that would kill a human like me or you in about a minute. They did this for about 10 days, and when they took them back to Earth and hydrated them again, they were pretty much fine. They were just okay. The majority of them just woke up and carried on like nothing had happened, and if this discovery wasn't so fascinating, it would be annoying. They're kind of annoyingly tough. Maybe it's both. Maybe they're fascinatingly annoying. Alright, next up at number 8, we have got the WOW signal. Wow. On August 15th, 1977, astronomer Jerry Emmon was monitoring a radio telescope at the SETI project, which stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. So he was basically looking for aliens. After years of signals that didn't seem to be alien at all, everything changed on this day. Jerry noticed on the telescope printout that there was a huge spike of a signal that was unlike anything they had ever seen, and stronger than anything they'd ever recorded. It lasted for a full 72 seconds. Jerry was astounded and quickly circled it with a red pen and wrote "wow" next to it. As news of the signal from space started to spread around the world, it became known as the WOW signal. Everybody went crazy and obviously started talking about aliens right away. They found where the signal came from in space, they located it, an area in the Sagittarius constellation, and they listened again and again and again and again, but nothing. They tried more than 50 times to pick up any signal at all. People around the world have actually been pointing their telescopes to this place in the stars ever since then, but it's just been total silence. Now some say it was aliens, some say it was a reflection of an Earth-based signal, but for many people, we'll never really know what the WOW signal really was. And you know what? That's still pretty cool. Alright, moving on to number 7 now, let's talk about space alcohol. Now in 1995, scientists discovered Sagittarius B2, a very distant and very massive cloud of alcohol. Yeah. Billions of litres of the stuff is just floating out there in an area about 1,000 times the size of our own solar system. It's insanely huge. They analysed all the data and found that the cloud contained ethyl formate. That's a substance that gives raspberries their flavour and rum its smell. So essentially this cloud would kind of taste of raspberry and smell like rum, apparently. But before you guys start picturing these huge floating galaxies of raspberry cocktails and Jamaican rum, most of it is not drinkable alcohol. It's made mainly of methanol. And that's the same thing you find in polish and windshield washer fluid. So you don't want to drink that. Scientists think it formed when ethyl alcohol got caught up in the creation of a new star. It boiled and separated into this gas cloud, and they're excited because these complex organic molecules are rare to find in outer space and could be our best bet yet for finding life somewhere out there. But personally I'm excited because yeah, there's kind of a massive raspberry rum space cocktail waiting for me somewhere out there. Okay, at number 6 now, we have asteroid rings. Now if I told you to picture something in space with rings around it, you'd probably say Saturn. Uranus also has them, even Jupiter and Neptune have slightly visible ones. But in 2014, out beyond Saturn, scientists found an asteroid known as Chariklo with 2 thin rings around it. This totally shocked astronomers because up until that point, they had presumed that only huge things like those planets we mentioned could have rings around them, not tiny little asteroids. It's kind of like presuming that only massive fat guys can be sumo wrestlers and then finding a tiny baby that's wrestling with the best of them. Like, whoa, aren't you a tiny bit small for that? In fact, astronomers think that Chariklo got its rings from debris left over after a massive collision, and that they might have been formed with the help of a tiny moon. What's going on? Apparently asteroids now have rings around them, and they have their own moons apparently, and pretty soon they'll probably have drive-thrus and Facebook and Matthew McConaughey. Alright, moving on to number 5 now, we have a rogue planet. Now in 2012, scientists found CFBD SIR 2149. Yeah, I think that might be its nickname. It's about 100 light years away from our own solar system, and it does not orbit any other star. It's just drifting through deepest, darkest space all by itself. It's also massive. They think it's between 4 to 7 times the mass of Jupiter. I think it's kind of scary to picture being on a planet that is just floating through the absolute darkness of outer space. No daytime, just constant night. Although it wasn't the first rogue planet the scientists think they've found, it is the closest one to us that we know of. Because of this, they could narrow its age down to between 50 to 120 million years, and they think it has a temperature of about 400 degrees Celsius. Now it is one of the better known rogue planets, but scientists do think there could be billions of them out there just drifting in the darkness. Alright, coming in at number 4 now, we have planet HD 189733b. Again, I think that might be its nickname. It's about 63 light years away. It looks quite nice, doesn't it? It's got a very nice blue hue to it. Well, that's not a blue ocean you guys are seeing, it's a massive gas giant. It's very hot, only one side of it ever faces its star, and it rains liquid glass sideways at over 7,000 kilometers an hour. Huh? Oh yeah, it rains liquid glass at 7,000 kilometers an hour sideways. So the planet is just 4.6 million kilometers away from its own star, which is very close. In fact, the pull on the planet is so strong that it's tidally locked, which means it cannot turn at all. One side is always facing the star, the other is always darkness. Now this causes very hot winds of 1,000 degrees Celsius to whip from one side to the other, which causes silicate particles there to condense into small drops of glass that rain down, and they're then whipped sideways at over 7,000 kilometers an hour. It's very cool, but I don't think we should move there. I'm quite good here. Alright, at number 3 now, we've got the Great Red Spot. Now look at this image of Jupiter. It's very recognizable, and I'm sure you guys recognize this, the Great Red Spot. But a lot of people don't realize that it's actually a massive storm the size of 3 planet Earths that has been raging for at least a few hundred years. In fact, we aren't really sure how long it's been going at all. It was first observed scientifically in 1879, but there have been reports of it going way back to 1664. Everyone has been pretty amazed by this. Think of the size of our planet and every piece of land and ocean and person in it. The whole thing could fit 3 times into this single storm that has been going on for hundreds of years. It could even be longer, but we just couldn't see it. And for all this time we've been observing it, we still don't really know why it's still there. From what we know about storms here on Earth, they eventually do disappear, but the Great Red Spot seems to be feeding off other tiny storms and getting new energy delivered to it to just keep going and going. Oh, and also scientists are still trying to figure out why it's even red in the first place. Yeah, they don't really know. So next time you guys think that zit on your face is the biggest mystery spot in the universe, don't worry, the Great Red Spot is a lot stranger. Okay, next up at number 2, we have the supervoid. Now we've talked a lot about strange things out there in space, but what about strange nothings? Well, in 2015, astronomers announced the discovery of a massive area of the universe, about 1.8 billion light years across, with, well, nothing in it, really. In an area that size, they expected to find about 10,000 galaxies, but they just weren't there, and technically this place shouldn't even exist. Now, although there is some matter there, scientists never expected to find an area so big with so little. And what I find strange as well is that even though this supervoid is mainly just nothing, it is something, just like a hole is a thing. In fact, one scientist described this object of nothingness as possibly the largest individual structure ever identified by humans, and it just adds to the argument that we know nothing. Well, I know nothing, but scientists also know nothing, but at least we know nothing. Alright, Alright guys, we've reached the end now, and finally at number 1 we have the sound of the Big Bang. Now in 1964, two astronomers called Robert W. Wilson and Arno A. Panzias were picking up a lot of odd buzzing noises coming from the Hold male horn antenna where they were working. It seemed to come from all parts of the sky around them, all day and all night, non-stop. They tried to get rid of it by tuning their instruments and, correcting it, and at one point they thought it was being caused by two pigeons that had nested in the actual antenna and were pooping everywhere. But after they had cleaned out the poop and tried everything, the noise was still there, all the time. Eventually, they realized that they were actually hearing cosmic microwave background radiation. That's the echo of the Big Bang. What they were essentially hearing was the leftover noise from the birth of the actual universe. Light from that event had been traveling across the universe for so long and so far that it had eventually become radio waves that were everywhere. Now some of the static you see on your TV when you turn it on in between channels is that very same thing. Robert and Arno won a Nobel Prize for confirming the Big Bang theory, although some people think it could still have been pigeon poop. Maybe.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have interstellar medium. If you're into space news, you'll know that the Voyager 1 and the Voyager 2 are two spacecrafts that have breached the edge of our solar system and have traveled further than any other man-made object before. This is important because it's given us insights we've never even had access to before, and that is exactly where this deep space discovery comes from. For a long time we weren't exactly sure what was outside of our solar system, but we assumed it must be a dark, cold place outside of the embrace of our sun, but we now know that that is far from true. Beyond the boundaries of our solar system, there is a region that is full of invisible but chaotic activity. Experts have described it like the plunge pool under Niagara Falls, but instead of tumbling water, this region is chaotic because of solar wind. This area of space is said to be millions of kilometers thick, and it covers billions of square kilometers around the surface of our heliosphere. Michelle Bannister, who is an astronomer at the University of Canterbury in Christchurch, New Zealand, explained this area and the solar winds as a constant, powerful stream of charged particles or plasma spraying out in every direction from the sun as it crashes into a cocktail of gas, dust, and cosmic rays that blows between star systems, known as interstellar medium. Because of our comfy place in the solar system and the heliosphere that surrounds us, we are protected from this space storm happening just outside of our bubble. In our number 9 spot today, we have a whirlpool galaxy planet. Just a few months ago it was announced that astronomers may have found a planet in a star system outside of the Milky Way, and if this is the case, it would be the first ever found in another galaxy. This planet was discovered in a spiral galaxy that is called Messier 51, but its nickname is the Whirlpool Galaxy. I like the Milky Way a lot, but that nickname has me super intrigued. But this galaxy is located a cool 23 million light years away from Earth, so I think just hearing about it will probably have to do. The first planets that lie outside of our solar system, also called exoplanets, were found in the 1990s, and while we've found thousands more, this is the first time we found a planet in another galaxy, and it will be the furthest alien planet ever identified, like by thousands of times. This planet was found in what is called an X-ray binary system, which is a type of star system. As their name implies, these star systems produce and emit X-rays, and they usually are made up of a normal star and a collapsed star, like a black hole or what is known as a neutron star. So usually when astronomers are trying to find a new planet, they use what is called the transit method. Transit is when a planet orbits in front of its parent star, and for us, it causes an observable change in the light of the star. So the experts who found this new planet used this same method, but instead of optical light, they used X-ray light. In our number 8 spot today, we have radio bursts. We get a lot of radio signals from space. Some are more exciting and mysterious than others, and it's not uncommon for some of the most mysterious ones to repeat, but for the very first time just last year, researchers noticed a pattern in a series of bursts that are coming from one single source. Oh, and it just so happens that this source is 500 million light years from Earth. Fast radio bursts are super short, like millisecond long bursts of radio waves in space, and usually when they repeat it tends to be sort of sporadic or all in a cluster. That is exactly why this discovery that was made by researchers at the Canadian Hydrogen Intensity Mapping Experiment and Fast Radio Burst Project collaboration was so strange and exciting. For a period between September 16th, 2018 and October 30th, 2019, they observed these radio bursts and noticed a pattern that repeated every 6.35 days. For 4 days, the signal would release a burst or two each hour, and then it would go silent for 12 days before repeating the process. Now the focus has turned to trying to find out what is on the other end of these signals and where they are coming from. What do you think? In our number 7 spot today we have a white dwarf. Okay, so for this discovery we all have to be on the same page with white dwarfs. These things are a stellar core remnant that are made up of mostly electron degenerate matter. These things are dense. They have a mass close to that of the sun, but their volume is similar to that of Earth. Basically, white dwarfs are in the final stage of a star, or the final evolutionary stage of a star whose mass is not quite high enough to become a neutron star or a black hole. This is what will one day happen to our sweet sun as well, since it's really not that large of a star. So, now that we all get what a white dwarf is, we have discovered one, and it is known to be the fastest spinning white dwarf we have ever found. This star was located in the binary system LAMOST J02401952, yeah, that was its short name, and the star completes a full rotation every 24.93 seconds. While it's taking us 24 hours, this thing is taking 24 seconds. That sounds like the worst ride at the fair. Scream if you want to go faster. In our number 6 spot today we have more radio bursts. Remember when I said that radio bursts happen often in space? Yeah, well here we are talking about another one. I swear I wasn't lying. Researchers like Dr. Benjamin Pope at the University of Queensland, along with colleagues from the Dutch National Observatory Astron, have been using the world's most powerful telescope to search for new planets. This has led to the detection of stars that are unexpectedly blasting out radio waves, which has now led researchers to believe that this may be due to the existence of hidden planets. We know that planets in our own solar system emit powerful radio waves, which is what happens when their magnetic fields interact with solar winds, but we had yet to pick up radio signals from planets outside of our solar system, which is what makes this discovery so exciting. Dr. Joseph Callingham at Leiden University and Astron, who is also the lead author of this discovery, said that the team is confident these signals are coming from the magnetic connection of the stars and unseen orbiting planets, similar to the interaction between Jupiter and its moon Io. In our number 5 spot today we have a black hole. You would think with how terrifying black holes are we'd know a lot about them, or that they'd at least be easy to identify, but it turns out that neither of those things are true. That is certainly a frightening thought, but that is also what made this little discovery an exciting one. Just a few weeks ago, astronomers discovered a small black hole just outside of the Milky Way, and it is hiding in a little star cluster. This discovery was made by looking at how this black hole was influencing the motion of the star that is closest to it, and that made it the first time this sort of method was used to detect a black hole outside of our galaxy. This is a very valuable discovery because it means that this method could potentially be used to help discover black holes that exist in other galaxies, which could then help shed light onto how these mysterious things form and evolve. In our number 4 spot today we have Martian meteorites. Okay, so this is a discovery that comes from our solar system, and it does involve Earth and Mars. It might not be the farthest out space discovery, but for reference, the closest that Earth and Mars could possibly be, which has never happened, it's just theoretical, is 54.6 million kilometers away from each other. But in that same breath, the furthest they can be from each other is 401 million kilometers. So it's safe to say we certainly aren't close. Over the past 20 million years or so, there's been about 166 Martian rocks that have landed on Earth, but for all of this time, their exact origins were unknown. That was until recently when researchers were able to determine the most likely origin of these meteorites using a machine learning algorithm that analyzes high-resolution planetary images. This research showed that these meteorites that landed on Earth likely originated from the Tooting crater on Mars, which is located in the Tharsis region, the largest volcanic province in the entire solar system. system. This discovery is groundbreaking because it comes 10 years before the Perseverance rover is set to send back samples of the Martian soil. There is a lot that went into exactly how they made this discovery, and it includes going back in the history of the planet, which is absolutely fascinating. Unfortunately, I only have so much time here, so I can't fully explain it, but Science Daily has a fantastic article about it should you want to read up a little bit more on this incredible research project. In our number 3 spot today, we have a baby planet. To us, our Earth may seem kind of old. I mean, it's been around for millions and millions of years and long before us, but in terms of space and the universe, it's really not too old of a planet. Earlier this year, however, scientists discovered one of the youngest planets to ever be found, and it is around a distant infant star. I don't know why, but talking about finding the youngest planet sounds like the cutest thing in the world to me. Thousands of planets have been discovered around other stars, but this one's age is what makes it so unique, and the fact that it can be directly observed. So far, we believe that this planet is a few times larger than Jupiter, and it is believed that it formed with its star several million years ago. I mean, our Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, so comparably, this guy's just a little youngster. Like, this planet was forming around the same time that the main Hawaiian Islands were first emerging from the ocean. Because this planet is so young, it is still very hot from the energy that was released during its formation. Like, it's sitting at about the temperature of lava erupting from a volcano, so it's just a little too hot for comfort. In our number 2 spot today, we have galactic recoil. There is another galaxy out there that we call the Andromeda Galaxy, and within it we have found this strangely shaped cluster of stars that has been stumping researchers for quite a while, but we think we may have found an answer as to why. This mystery has been around for decades, and this new research might help researchers to better understand how galaxies grow by feeding on each other. Basically, every galaxy has a supermassive black hole at their core. I know, it's kind of terrifying, but it's just the way it is, and there really isn't anything we can do about it. So this new study is showing that when two galaxies collide, which yes, also unfortunately happens, the supermassive black holes and their cores then release a huge, devastating, powerful kickback, like the recoil from a shotgun kind of a situation. This new study and research is now showing and suggesting that this kickback may be so strong that it can knock millions of stars into different wonky, strange orbits, and this might be the answer as to why the star cluster behaves so strangely. Basically, the collision and the waves won't affect the stars in the galaxy directly, but the recoil is going to throw the remaining supermassive black hole through space. And when I say throw, I'm talking about traveling at millions of miles per hour. We also have to remember that supermassive black holes have a mass that can be millions and even billions times that of the sun. This means that this kickback could be powerful enough for them to entirely escape the galaxy, and if they don't, they may pull the orbits of the stars around them, thus creating this wonky situation we've been wondering about. Of course, this is the most basic way of explaining it because an expert I am not, but it is truly such a fascinating concept. In our number 1 spot today, we have dead galaxies. It is said that the universe is about 13.8 billion years old. When it was just a youngster at only 3 billion years old, it was going through an extremely important period in its development, and this was the most prolific period of star birth in its entire history. New research from NASA using the Hubble Space Telescope, along with the Atacam Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array in northern Chile, they gazed towards the cosmic objects in this period, and that is when they found something they hadn't seen before. 6 different quote dead galaxies. By this I mean that they had run out of the cold hydrogen needed to make stars, and without the fuel for stars, these galaxies were basically just running on empty. At this point in our universe, all the galaxies should have been forming tons of stars. I mean, ours certainly was, as can be seen by a glance towards the night sky, especially in areas that aren't clouded by light pollution. This discovery is absolutely fascinating, but it's led us to new questions we didn't even know we had before. What led these galaxies to this point? What happened to all of the cold gas in them so early on? These 6 galaxies lived fast, hot lives, but we aren't sure what went wrong. Lead author and assistant professor of astronomy at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, Kate Whitaker, proposed several potential explanations and gave us insight into the future of the studies when she said, quote, "Did a supermassive black hole in the galaxy's center turn on and heat up all the gas? If so, the gas could still be there, but now it's hot. Or it could have been expelled and now it's being prevented from accreting back into the galaxy. Or did the galaxy just use it all up and the supply is cut off? These are some of the open questions that we'll continue to explore with new observations down the road.
Kicking off the list at number 10, WASP-96b. Okay, we have to talk about some James Webb goodness in this list, of course. NASA just released a handful of photos from its $10 billion project. This telescope launched last Christmas and the gifts have finally arrived. And I'm terrified. We are so small in the universe. What is going on? In the cluster of photos, we see a giant exoplanet called WASP-96. And no, it is not full of wasps. I mean, I hope not, who's to say? But it could hold secrets behind human existence. WASP-96 is a gas planet half the size of Jupiter, 1,150 years away from us. It orbits its star every 3 to 5 days, so I hope you love New Year's parties, because you're gonna have a lot of them. Thanks to our boy James Webb up there in space, we can now see that there's lots of water surrounding this planet. Clouds and haze, says NASA. That's good. I'm excited for more water to be found in the universe, but I'm also nervous because, more water means more fish and, also up aliens. Number 9, Kepler 1649c. Yeah, it's not all about James Webb today, okay? NASA's Kepler Space Telescope also discovered this one a while back, but while NASA was revisiting old observations in 2018 before, retiring said telescope, they noticed previous computer algorithms misidentified it, and upon second glance, it's indeed an exoplanet. Yep, 300 light years away from Earth, it's a tad larger than our planet, and it receives a good amount of starlight. It receives about 75% of what our own sun gives off. Thing is, Kepler 1649c orbits a red dwarf, meaning solar flare-ups could prevent further life from evolving, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, I don't know. No aliens, please, thanks. Number 8, Ross 128b. I love the names for all these exoplanets. It's just like Jake 21a. You're like, okay, potentially habitable. So much monster energy. Back in 2017, this exoplanet was discovered by Xavier Bonfils at the Institute of Planetology and Astrophysics of Grenoble. Now this one is 11 light years away from us. It's pretty close. And it only takes 10 days to complete a trip around its M-type star. The star is redder, cooler, and dimmer, so perhaps this planet could one day host life. Or maybe it one day already did. Who's to say? Either way. Don't want it. Don't want any part of these aliens. Number 7, Ice Moon. We're looking billions of years into the past, we're searching cosmic clouds light years away, but what about our own galaxy? What about our own solar system? What about our own moon? Could there one day be life on our moon? Back in 2018, NASA confirmed that there is surface ice on the moon's north and south pole. This was huge. NASA mineralogy mapper instruments picked up ice traces near the darkest and coldest craters of the rock. There are 3 specific signatures that prove that there is 100% water ice on the surface of moon. Yeah, and we're talking about aliens whipping out of our oceans. Like, what's going on here? Something's afoot. Number 6, Levelland Flaming Thing. Nice, that's a good title. Imagine opening the newspaper back in 1957 and on the front cover you read, Levelland Flaming Thing brings world knocking at city's door. That's alarming, that's a pretty crazy one. What does that even mean, right? Back in 1957 in Levelland, Texas, multiple eyewitness reports began to flood in about an egg-shaped object or this circular flash of light, something egg-like, jetting across Levelland skies. I just like saying Levelland, if I'm being honest. I'm trying to say it as many times as I can. I'm probably saying it wrong, it's probably like Leland, but I'm gonna keep going with Levelland. One witness recalls the object making a loud humming noise as it flew by, which is different than other accounts that we've heard so far for, UFOs. The egg shape keeps coming back in history, right? We've seen this in multiple accounts, but this is an encounter where it's been reported as loud, with a great rush of wind. And on top of that claim, the witness's car radio began to go haywire. It was like, it was like, in case you missed it the first time. The radio thing isn't too crazy. I mean, growing up, my computer speakers would always tell me if a phone call was about to come in. Felt like I was from the future. That was always odd. The Air Force also commented on it, saying that this was just a phenomenon caused by electrical storms. It was a ball of lightning, they say. A ball of lightning back in 1957. Crazy, haven't seen many of those since. Number 5, 2017 UFO. I remember this one because I was really scared, not sure what was happening with the universe. Back in 2017, after the existence of the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program became more well known, a video was then released of an encounter between an FA-18 Super Hornet and some sort of unidentified flying object. A UFO. Or a UAP, sorry, we don't say UFOs anymore, now it's a UAP. There weren't a ton of details released about what exactly happened during this encounter because there weren't any details to provide, but the Raytheon Advanced Targeting Forward Locking Infrared, or ATFLR if you're out of breath like me, they were able to capture an extremely fast moving white oval that was around 45 feet long. The oval had no wings and didn't appear to have any kind of exhaust either. They were tracking a UFO at the altitude of 25,000 feet just above the Atlantic Ocean. And then they were shocked because the craft rotated on its side and then just flew away. There was no explanation released with the footage because it truly is unbelievable and no one can figure it out yet. If you have any ideas, sound off below. All these mystery eggs floating in and out of our towns. Number 4, Europa life. One of Jupiter's moons, called Europa, has a red tinge around it, and in 2001, NASA scientists revealed that it's possible that alien microbes may be responsible for said red tinge. The surface of its moon is mostly icy, but it has been shown that it reflects infrared radiation in a bizarre way. This means that something is binding it together, but researchers haven't been able to come up with the correct combination of elements and compounds to make this data make any sense. Know what I mean? There are some bacteria on Earth that can thrive in extreme conditions, some fish that have never seen light ever and they're glowy somehow. The surface temperature might be too cold for them to survive, but the warmer interior might be where they're all located. Some geological activity on the moon could then push them closer to the surface, where they then flash frozen in place. What a horrible way to go. Number 3, Venus cloud. Back in September 2020, astrobiologists everywhere were excited but also skeptical at some new potential evidence that had been found in the upper clouds of Venus. You probably heard about this, right? Firstly, can we just take a second to really think about how cool of a job it is to be an astrobiologist? To just be like, yep, aliens, let's do it. And then they plan a mission and then take off. Anyways, phosphine is very rare, and usually it's poisonous gas here on Earth that is basically always met with the presence of living organisms, right? So we find this gas, it's bad, but always connects with life. Venus hasn't really been at the top of the list for choices for finding potential life due to its surface temperature, of course, and pressure to the, sulfuric acids in the clouds, and it's horrible and you can never live there ever. But this new evidence could prove to say something otherwise. 2 separate telescopes were able to pick up the signatures of phosphine in a cloud that had a similar temperature and pressure to Earth, and while this isn't concrete evidence of, space beings or bugs or anything like that, it'll at least be a reminder that we should be continuing to look for life or clues around life, you know what I mean? Even in the most unlikely places, like Venus clouds. Maybe it's space bugs also, who knows? That'd be gross. Space moths that live in clouds of phosphine. That would suck. Number 2. Astronaut sightings. We could sit on Earth all day and talk about the potential for said alien life, but who would know more than the people who have actually been to space, right? I mean, who am I? I'm just the guy who makes YouTube videos. Ask the people who have been out there, which are of course astronauts. Ask astronauts. That'd be a cool website. Ask astronauts. It probably is a website, actually. Definitely on the list of the coolest and scariest jobs in the entire world. There haven't been a ton of people who have had the, privilege of experiencing space firsthand, but there are even less of them who have claimed to see something that could potentially prove alien existence. People who have claimed these sorts of things include Edgar Mitchell, Catherine Coleman, and Dr. Brian O'Leary. The very interesting part about many of these claims is that they will also include some sort of government cover-up as well with their claim. So it's always pretty juicy. There was also Buzz Aldrin, who spoke about his Apollo 11 experience, and he detailed the crew seeing something flying alongside them, but at first they believed it was the final stage of a detached rocket. But then Mission Control confirmed that that rocket was actually 6,000 miles away from them at the time, so there was no answers on what said flying object could have been. But they noticed it, as would you in a spaceship looking out of a window. And finally, number 1, moon life. Titan is one of Saturn's many moons. Saturn has 82 moons, so if there's any aliens hiding near Saturn, we're never gonna find them. They have many places to hide. A lot of nooks and crannies to hide behind. A lot of moons to hide behind. That's a lot of moons, and around 10 years ago, NASA's Cassini spacecraft detected water under its massive shell of ice, which is really exciting. Again, like I said with our own moon, even traces of water is amazing, let alone this much. To quote a Cassini team member, the search for water is an important goal in solar system exploration, and now we've spotted another place where it is abundant. NASA has also detected low frequency radio waves on the icy moon, and it sounds pretty eerie. So we have radio waves and we have water. Sounds like aliens to me, my friends. As far as space mysteries go, anywhere that has water or signs of water, fish. Some sort of alien fish is hiding in there. Look at our own planet. Look at an octopus. An octopus changes colors while it dreams. Alien.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have time travel. The first large-scale image to be publicly released that was taken by the James Webb Telescope was a mega deep sky image of a galaxy cluster called SMACS 0723, which sits over 5 billion light years away from us. The reason this cluster is so profound is because it offers us a glimpse into the early universe. This cluster, despite only being a couple 100 million light years across, which in the cosmos really isn't a large space at all, still is the home to thousands of galaxies. But if you look even closer at the image, you can see even more. In between these galaxies are twisting and arcing bands of light, which are even more distant galaxies, but their light is being distorted as it passes through this dense cluster of galaxies. Some of these galaxies are the oldest ever observed, some over 13 billion years old, and this is important because we don't yet know fully how galaxies formed in the early days of the universe, and James Webb is helping us put those puzzle pieces together. In our number 9 spot today, we have the complex galaxies. And with these distant galaxies comes a realization about their structures. Some of these galaxies are far more complex than astronomers had once expected. In a study into the deep field image, researchers found a surprisingly high number of distant galaxies that are shaped like disks. Basically, while using Hubble, scientists believed or had a theory that early galaxies were often more distorted by their interactions with neighboring galaxies, and that these distant galaxies were more irregularly shaped than ones nearby, which, not unlike the Milky Way, are normally more regularly formed in the shape of disks. This changed though with the Webb observations, because this telescope revealed that there are up to 10 times as many distant disk-shaped galaxies than what was previously thought. According to some experts, because of the fact that this contradicts what was once thought about the evolution of galaxies, that much more research needs to be put into this specifically to figure out exactly what this means and how it changes our theories moving forward. In our number 8 spot today, we have cosmic noon. Moving on a little later into galactic evolution, one study into Webb's observations focused on cosmic noon, which was a period approximately 3 billion years after the Big Bang. It is an important period because of the fact that this is the time when star formation peaked in the universe and the most light was created. An astronomer at the University of California, Santa Cruz named Ren Seuss examined images taken by both Hubble and Webb of galaxies at cosmic noon, and this is when Ren realized something. The infrared wavelengths detected by Webb showed that the massive galaxies looked significantly smaller than they did in the Hubble images. Of this discovery, Seuss said, quote, "It potentially changes our whole view of how galaxy sizes evolve over time. Based on Hubble images, it was thought or suggested that galaxies start out small and grow larger over time, but these Webb images are showing that maybe this isn't the case and that things might be a little more complicated than anticipated." In our number 7 spot today, we have the exoplanet atmosphere. While there are many tasks that the James Webb will be taking on through its career, one of them is to study alien exoplanets, most especially to figure out what their atmospheres are made of. To do this, when the exoplanet passes in front of its parent star, the light from the star, of course, passes through the planet's atmosphere before continuing onto its journey wherever. Whatever the atmosphere is made up of, whatever the elements are, it changes the nature of the light, and this is something that James Webb can pick up on. WASP 96b is an exoplanet that we've had our eye on for a while now, and it is a giant gassy planet that orbits close to its parent star, and now it is being used to test Webb's abilities before moving on to more challenging targets, such as Earth-like planets that orbit sun-like stars. There are a few incredible discoveries that Webb has made in doing this, like the first detection in an exoplanet atmosphere of sulfur dioxide, and new readings are even revealing signs of active chemistry within the atmosphere. This is all to say that these tests are yielding incredible results, which is extremely promising when it comes to the future and the understanding of exoplanets. In our number 6 spot today, we have star formation. People who are busy studying galactic chemistry have been receiving some more complicated and interesting data from Webb. One analysis examined light emitted by galaxies that had a redshift of 5 or greater. In this analysis, they found a surprising richness in elements like oxygen. This is important because astronomers had thought that the process of chemical enrichment, which is the process where stars fuse hydrogen and helium in order to form heavier elements, they thought that this took a while, but this analysis made them realize that it is happening in earlier galaxies. This has led experts to say that they really need to start rethinking the speed at which we believe star formation occurs. In our number 5 spot today, we have the star life cycle. Speaking of star formation, Webb is showing us us both the birth as well as the death of stars. Images produced by Webb of both the Carina Nebula as well as the Southern Ring Nebula are incredible. The Carina Nebula is a star nursery. It is the birthplace for new stars, and the powerful Webb instruments are able to pierce through the gas clouds and show us unbelievable moments in these stars' creations. On the other end is the Southern Ring Nebula, which is produced by a star not unlike the Sun shortly after its demise. By being able to study these different star life stages, we can piece together more about the stories of these stars themselves. In our number 4 spot today, we have starlight. Back in September of this year, 2022, the James Webb Space Telescope spotted a set of concentric angular rings around a giant but distant star. Of course, we needed to know more, so researchers dove further into the images and found something incredible. A study revealed that these ripples turned out to be puffs of organic dust that were created and then spread across the universe by an odd star system. This might just seem like a cool space occurrence, but this marked the first time researchers were able to find evidence of starlight moving visible matter beyond our solar system, which is absolutely incredible. I mentioned how this star system is odd, and that is because it is made up of 2 stars that orbit each other. In our number 3 spot today, we have Stephan's Quintet. You may be familiar with this term because it was another one of the first photos publicly released from the James Webb Telescope, but it's possible that maybe you didn't know exactly what you were looking at. Stephan's Quintet is a visual group of 5 galaxies, 4 of which form the first compact galaxy group ever discovered. These 4 galaxies will all likely eventually merge with each other, but until that happens, we have these stunning visuals of them all dancing together. Space telescopes like James Webb have provided some insights into some emissions coming from between the galaxy group. It is now believed to be shockwave in the intergalactic gas, which is caused by one galaxy falling into the center of the group at, roughly the speed of several million kilometers per hour. Just space stuff. In our number 2 spot today, we have the DART mission. So I'm sure we all remember earlier this year when NASA's DART mission slammed into an asteroid just to see if we could potentially redirect an asteroid in the future if it were on a collision course with Earth. They tested this planetary defense mechanism and it actually seems to have been largely successful, and among those watching was none other than the James Webb Telescope. Since the mission, information that Webb collected has been sent back to us on Earth, and it is giving us more insight into how to ensure we are using this technology to our advantage and to see how we can improve it. In our number 1 spot today, we have the cloud discoveries. Speaking of exoplanets, James Webb has observed one that has evidence of silicate-rich clouds. Well, it's actually a brown dwarf that is about 20 times the size of Jupiter. It is called VHS 1256b, and it orbits 2 small red dwarfs and is 72 light years away from Earth. Webb has also used its skills to reveal details in a gas cloud called Doradus 30, which received the nickname Tarantula due to its very spooky appearance. This Tarantula Nebula is located about 161,000 light years away, and it resides in the Large Magellanic Cloud, and I mean aside from our very own Milky Way, it is the brightest star-forming region in our neck of the cosmic woods.
Number 10. Zombie star. While the idea of a human coming back to life and hunting for brains is spooky, to me the knowledge that dead stars can do the same, even the eating each other part, is both scary and exciting. This is Tycho, a former white dwarf, which is a star that has, quote, died and gone supernova, exploding into a fantastic show of cosmic energy and matter with the power and brightness of a billion suns. And usually a white dwarf will stay dead, but not in a binary system where there's more than one star at the center. Sometimes these previously deceased stars can come back to life. And they do this by feeding off the energy and material from their neighboring star and powering themselves back up, not unlike a zombie eating somebody's brains. Scientists believe that this may have to do with what they call dark energy as well, which theoretically makes up about 3/4 of our universe, but since we have yet to truly detect or understand it, these zombie stars will remain a mystery. But they look super cool, right? Number 9. Alien bones. Captured on August 14th, 2014 by the Curiosity rover, this photo appears to show something on the surface of Mars that could chill you to the bone, a femur on the surface of the red planet. Many conspiracy theorists and alien enthusiasts alike hopped onto this to show it as proof that there was once life on Mars, or even that humans had been there before on some sort of secret mission that went awry. NASA has gone on the record to say that it's not a thigh bone, but just a rock that happened to be shaped that way after erosion from wind or water, which we have proven existed at one point. But come on, If it really was a bone, do you think that they'd tell us? Though I'm inclined to go with the scientists on this one. It would be kinda cool if we had proof of aliens on Mars. If you think there are aliens out there, hit the like and subscribe buttons to help us bring you the most amazing videos on them. Number 8. Eye of Sauron. The Rings of Power just finished its first season as I'm recording this video, and since I still have Tolkien on the brain, this photo of the Fomalhaut system made the cut. A relatively young system at 440 million years old. For comparison, our sun is about 4.5 billion years old. Fomalhaut and its surrounding disk of space dust have been the subject of a lot of controversy in the astronomical community. The images captured interest scientists not only because they look like they came straight from Mordor, but because of the zombie planet that has been tricky to find. The photos taken show that the dust ring is not centered around the star, but is shifted and elongated into the eye shape, which indicates something of large mass on the outer parts of the system, which scientists believed could be a Saturn-sized planet. Investigations have been conflicting over the past few years, with researchers believing on and off that the planet exists, and with Hubble images being inconclusive, which is why we call it a zombie planet, because it keeps coming back to life in a way amongst researchers. The system may have gotten its strange ring shape from all of the comet activity as well, with over 2,000 comet impacts daily, many of those comets being over 1 kilometer wide. That would definitely kick up a lot of dust, so one does not simply walk into Fomalhaut. Number 7. Sunken. Okay, I threw this one in because it's currently spooky season while I record this, and having a jack-o'-lantern sun on the list couldn't be passed up. In 2014, the Solar Dynamics Observatory captured this creepy photo of the sun smiling right at us, like its features had been carved right out of a pumpkin. Solar flares and activity on the sun can be quite unpredictable, and the fact that it lined up to look like this is pretty cool. I just hope that there isn't some giant alien up there carving into our sun to decorate their intergalactic porch. But if that's the case, what are we gonna dress up Earth as? If Earth had a Halloween costume, what would it be? Let me know in the comments. Number 6. Greater pumpkin galaxies. Sticking with the Halloween theme, 120 million light years away in the Canis Major constellation, these two galaxies, called NGC 2292 and 2293, have earned a much cooler name, the Greater Pumpkin Galaxies. Because of their orange color and the fact that they look like a jack-o'-lantern, these galaxies doomed to collide in what we will see as slow motion make for a pretty spectacular image. Not to mention that NASA released the photos on Halloween a few years ago. Though it may be a fun Halloween-themed image, there is a scary truth about them. They're on track to collide with each other. And as the two galaxies draw closer, they begin to spin around one another and could eventually form one single spiral galaxy. But when that happens, there will be some cosmic consequences. Things smashing into each other at ludicrous speeds and exploding out into the darkness with the force of many nuclear bombs. But we don't actually know what will happen until it does. While some may say it reminds them of the Great Pumpkin, I would say that it looks more like a 100,000 light year across Jack Skellington. Number 5. The face of Mars. This freaky famous photo was taken by the Viking 1 orbiter in 1976 and shows us what is very clearly a face embedded in the surface of Mars. A massive one at that, judging by the scale of what's around it. It very clearly has 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. Uncanny, really, especially for being what NASA has called a cosmic coincidence, because with enough time and space, literally anything can happen. When investigated again in 2001 with a better camera, it was not to be seen. Was it just a mound of rocks and dirt that was blown or moved away, or was it something more sinister, watching us from the red planet, not knowing that we were finally looking back? Number 4. Black hole in the Milky Way. Black holes, one of the biggest driving forces in the cosmos. These places of pure darkness were once stars that shone bright in the sky, but when they died, instead of going supernova and exploding into a blast of color and energy, they collapsed in on themselves, creating a singularity so dense that it sucks everything around it in, with a force that nothing can escape, not even light. And while this may sound scary, they are incredibly necessary for our understanding of the universe to function. In fact, there are a few in our galaxy, but the biggest is Sagittarius A, the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way. This is the second image ever captured of a black hole, and it's insane that we've developed the technology to be able to find and photograph them. Sag A sits at the center of our galaxy and is the reason why it spins and has its signature spiral shape. But the scary part is that it is not only spinning our galaxy, but consuming it, adding one more way that our galaxy can meet its demise. Not sure I'd rather that or colliding with another galaxy. Either way, none of us are going to be around to see it. Number 3. Hand of God. This is what's known as a pulsar wind nebula, and what you're seeing is a cloud of material that was ejected from a dying star, captured by X-ray telescopes functioning at different energy levels, lower energy detections appearing in red and green, and higher ones in blue. While we can explain what this stellar specter is made of, we can't quite figure out why it takes the shape it does. does, and NASA is still wondering if the pulsar particles are interacting in a specific way to make it look like a hand. When the new readings were taken, the ones appearing blue, they realized that one part of the hand is actually shrinking at a different speed than the rest, implying that the two areas were physically different, and making us all wonder what the hand is reaching towards. Number 2, Ghost Nebula. Known formally as SH2-136, really rolls off the tongue. This reflection nebula has some pretty startling shapes appearing within it. A reflection nebula does exactly what you think. It reflects light from nearby stars and galaxies. The energy from stars nearby is not strong enough to ionize the gas of the nebula, but it is enough to illuminate the dust and make it visible to us. Looking at the picture, it's a no-brainer why it's earned its much cooler name, the Ghost Nebula. You can see little figures waving from the edge of the space cloud. They even appear to have horns. I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm here for it. Give me all the spooky space specters. Again, this is just one of those cosmic coincidences that we can't explain, and that if we existed at any other place in the universe, we may not see. So we're pretty lucky, I guess. But let's hope our luck holds out for our final entry. Number 1, roaming black holes. Now, I told you about black holes, those things that suck in and destroy anything that comes near, even light, with no chance to escape. But they are pretty detectable, and we should be able to avoid them since they're such a huge cosmic entity, right? Well, what if I told you that there are many out there that are near impossible to detect, because they're moving? That's right. Known as roaming black holes, these death spheres fly through our universe, devouring everything in their path. Only detectable by fluctuations in mass and light, they were most likely two black holes that attracted each other, then slingshotted off one another and were flung out into space. But here's the kicker. The Hubble telescope actually detected one closer than anyone would want, in our own Milky Way. While pointed near the center of the galaxy at Sagittarius A, a fluctuation in light and space shows that we may have one of these devouring our galaxy, and we would never see it coming until it was too late. So there you go, one of my, and possibly now one of your fears, roaming black holes. Space is crazy and terrifying. It is absolutely baffling and will never cease to impress me the technology and knowledge we have developed in our time as a species to investigate beyond our own planet, especially since at the end of the day, we're all just monkeys with car keys.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Gliese 581g. Kicking this list off with an exoplanet hiding in the constellation Libra. Yeah, to all my fellow Libras out there, this one's for you. Happy early birthday. It was discovered back in 2010, but Gliese 581g, still to this day, its confirmation is hard to pinpoint. Yeah, the thing with exoplanets is that they're a little far away. They're a little hard to see out there. But somehow the fine minds over at the University of Puerto Rico at Arecibo calls Gliese 581 the top candidate for alien life. You heard it here, folks. There we go. It's only sitting 20 light years away from our very own sun, and Gliese 581g is 3 times as large as Earth. So to all my Libras, bring a friend or two. Let's party it up. We got room. If you're a fan of New Year's parties, again, this is the planet for you. Every 30 days, we're counting down to a new year. So we don't have to wait too long to party. Off to a good start. Number 9, HD 85512b. This next planet's in HD, Chris. There you go. Put on your 3D glasses. Announced in 2011 alongside 50 other planets. Okay. HD 85512b was discovered by the High Accuracy Radial Velocity Planet Searcher instrument, or to save you some breath, HARPS for short, over in Chile. Yeah, Chile's casually exploring 50 planets over in their weekend. Okay. It's wild how some of these discoveries happened so long ago, but we don't talk about them nearly enough. Again, same deal as the Gliese 581g, this planet too is 3 times the size of Earth. It's actually 3.5 times bigger. Yeah, as far as commutes go, it'll take some time to get there. Yeah, we're still working on that part. The HD planet hides around 35 light years away from us. This one you can find in the constellation Vela, aka the snail. Is it truly habitable? Is there water on this planet? Well, that's to be determined. Our boy James Webb's gonna take a peek real soon. Number 8, Gliese 581e. Wait a minute, how many Glises are there? Is a single Gliese a goose? What's going on here? In typical part 2 fashion, I had to include another Gliese. There's actually 4 of them in total. I'm not going to do all 4 though. For more than 4 years, the HARP spectrograph attached to the ESO telescope in Chile, they were finding groundbreaking discoveries for 4 years straight. Astronomers found the lightest exoplanet so far to this day. The lightest planet, that's crazy. This one is quite small compared to others on this list. Gliese 581e is only twice the mass of our Earth, whereas the planet furthest out, Gliese 581d, orbits its star every 67 days. While Gliese 581e completes its orbit every 3 days. You know what I mean? Yeah, having a birthday every 3 days? Oh, what a nightmare that would be. Never go into this planet. This one can stay off our radar. Little small glees, little glees. Number 7, carbon on Mars. It's one thing to have Elon Musk tweeting about going to Mars or whatever he's doing over there, buying Twitter, I guess. But when NASA talks about it, I get a weird feeling, you know, it's NASA, you know, they're old school. They're like, we may have found carbon 40 years ago. Yeah. That's just it, that's the tweet. In 2022, just back in January, NASA's Curiosity rover measured carbon signatures on Mars. This is huge. Paul Mahaffey, principal investigator of the sample analysis at Mars, he says, quote, "We're finding things on Mars that are tantalizingly interesting, but we would really need to get more evidence to say that we've identified life." End quote. Okay, so we're close. It sounds like we're a little close. I don't know. Side note, imagine going on a Willy Wonka trip to Mars with Elon. Do we want to go? Like, he's announcing all these trips to Mars. I don't want to do that. I can't even drive to Ottawa for 4 hours, let alone Mars for years. No way. I'm homesick already. Number 6, Ryan Graves' UFO sightings. I mentioned this a little bit back in part 1, but I of course have to add more. Back in 2017, a $22 million defense program was put in place. It was called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Now its purpose was to study military encounters with UFOs. And at this point, Navy pilots were coming out with their own story. Their eyewitness account of seeing a UAP, or a UFO if you're old school. Eventually, come 2019, senators felt the need to be briefed on these sightings. It was that serious. After a vote by the Senate Intelligence Committee in June 2020, it was agreed that UAP reports were now to get added to the Intelligence Authorization Act for 2021 and going forward. That's crazy. That's why more and more footage is coming out now every other week, you know what I mean? These incidents were filmed ages ago, but only now are they being released. It's kind of cool. According to the Times, 120 incidents were studied during this case, and it turns out the US military is not responsible for any of the 120. If they happen to be advanced drones sent to spy on the military, it's kind of important to find out who sent them, know what I mean? And recently, a former Navy pilot, Ryan Graves, he spoke out to 60 Minutes, and he explained that these UAPs would pop up during training exercises every day for at least a couple of years. He says, and I quote, "If these were tactical jets from another country that were hanging out up there, it would be a massive issue. But because it looks slightly different, we're not willing to actually look at the problem in the face. We're happy to just ignore the fact that these are out there watching us train every day." That's a quote from Ryan Graves. Real pilot. And these are goosebumps from me. Awesome, I'm terrified. Are aliens real? What are we doing, man? Like, let's move on before I faint. My gosh. Number 5, Milky Way radio burst. On April 28th, 2020, 2 radio telescopes detected an intense pulse of radio waves, and they only lasted just a millisecond, but they left astronomers baffled. The reason for this is because this was the first time a fast radio burst had been detected this close to Earth. This signal was located only 30,000 light years from Earth, which places it in our Milky Way galaxy. That's pretty damn close. The Canadian Hydrogen Intensity Mapping Experiment, or again, CHIME if you want to save breath, they explained that the signal was so easy to pick up that CHIME wasn't even looking its direction and it still noticed the signal. It was loud and clear right in their peripheral vision. And another telescope, STARE 2, also saw it clear as day. Well, it looks like whatever the cause for the signal, someone or something, we saw it. So now what? We found you. You can come out now. Number 4, the Lorimer burst. This is a fast radio burst that was detected long ago. This was back in 2007, and it was named, of course, after the person who spotted it, Duncan Lorimer. Well, actually, it was discovered when Duncan assigned his student, David Narkovec, to look through archival data taken in 2001 by the Parkes radio dish in Australia. That's when they noticed. After analyzing this data, it was found that there was a dispersed burst that occurred on July 24th, 2001. This burst was less than 5 milliseconds long, and it was located just 3 degrees from the small Magellanic Cloud. It still isn't quite clear what caused said signal, but it's thought that perhaps it may have been a singular event, such as a supernova, or an Avengers level threat. One of the two. Number 3, light shifts. Back in 2015, a Penn State astronomer named Jason Wright explained that there were pretty erratic and spontaneous shifts in the light that was coming from a star that was newly discovered. Yeah, shifts in light. What's that about? This star sits about 1,280 light years away from Earth, and these shifts were very similar, as if something was passing in front of our view of the star. Scientists weren't able to connect this to any exoplanets or meteors or anything like that, so in turn, Jason whipped up an interesting theory that's lived rent-free in my head ever since. He stated that it's possible that the shifts are caused by massive objects passing in front of the star in a slow orbit, like an array of massive satellites or a structure, like the type of thing that would be produced by an intelligent and civilized life form. Or maybe it's an asteroid. One of the two. Either way, I'm scared. Again. Number 2. Mount Rainier. Not to be confused with Mount Chiliad, although there's definitely aliens there as well. Mount Rainier in Washington was bumping and buzzing back in 1947. Pilot Kenneth Arnold made the first modern report of a flying saucer, or a UAP. Apparently it was a flying egg, actually, that's what it looked like. Kenneth saw 9 circular-shaped objects flying in formation. The classic formation, and they were flying at twice the speed of sound. So the Idaho pilot told the Air Force, and they laughed it off. They didn't believe him at all. He took this claim to his grave. Kenneth stood by what he saw until his death later in 1984. He said that he saw UAPs. He reached out to the Seattle Times in 1977, long before the movie Signs was made, and he said, "I made my report because I thought it was my duty. It was the only proper and American thing to do. I saw what I saw." End quote. And also, end point. I'm, again, terrified. And finally, number 1. The lights. Okay, imagine you're driving home one night after a long shift at work. Maybe you worked late and it's midnight. You're driving and you see a V formation, the classic formation, in the sky made up of yellow and orange lights. Do you pull over? Do you assume you're just, beyond exhausted and maybe this is all in your head? Because that's what I would do. Back in 2001, on July 14th, drivers along the New Jersey Turnpike saw just that. It was a touch after midnight and cars legit pulled over and people got out to get a better look at what was in the sky. Everybody looked at this thing for around 15 minutes. It was just hovering over top of the Arthur Kill Waterway right between Staten Island and New Jersey. Just floating there, just doing alien stuff. One eyewitness, Joe Mavasio, recalls the sighting as one of the most amazing things he had ever seen. And then just like that, the lights vanished. They faded out one by one in typical alien fashion. Daniel Tarrant of the Carteret Police Department recalls seeing this with his own eyes as well. It was 16 golden covered lights in a V formation. Aliens are fun and all, but keep your eyes on the roads, my friends, I'm not looking at anything. Aliens or not, 10 and 2, we're getting home. That's it. Seatbelts, I'm checking those mirrors. No aliens back there, we're good.